Hey everyone, Pastor Shane here with our next devotion in this Kingdom Life series. Last time we finished up the Beatitudes, and so now we're going to be moving deeper, a little farther on into the Sermon on the Mount, and we're going to talk about salt and light today. But before I get into that, I just wanted to say thank you to the people who have encouraged me, dropped me a line with some encouraging words about the devotions we're doing. I appreciate that, but more than that, I'm just glad that they're helping and they're encouraging you. Because here's the thing: these kinds of online activities, podcasting, video podcasting, whatever you want to call this, kind of depends on feedback and so because here's the thing, if it ain't helping nobody, then I want to be a good steward of my time and do something else with my time. So, but as long as it's helping, I'm grateful. I'm glad that it's helping. And I just ask that every now, it doesn't have to be every time, but just let me know that it's helping. And just drop a line in the comments or just a like on the Facebook page, and that'll be enough. And that's not to stroke my ego or anything. I don't need anybody to do that. I just want to be sure that this is making an impact, and this is a good use of my time and not a waste of yours. And so anyway, so where we're going to be at today is Matthew chapter 5, verses 13 through 16. And it says this: "You are the salt of the earth, but if salt has lost its taste, how shall its saltiness be restored? It's no longer good for anything except to be thrown out and trampled underfoot. You are the light of the world. A city set on a hill cannot be hidden, nor do people light a lamp and put it under a basket, but on a stand, and it gives light to all in the house. In the same way, let your light shine before others, so that they may see your good works and give glory to your Father who is in heaven." All right, so it's a very familiar passage. I mean, even the phrase "salt of the earth" has kind of become a phrase in our culture. We describe mid-American people as salt of the earth kind of people. So, but anyways, I've been meditating on these verses for a few days, trying to prepare something for this devotion that might be fresh, because can I be frank with you? I've heard these verses so many times in my life that I feel a little familiar with them, kind of familiar with them. So that makes me feel like I'm afraid I'm missing something. And when I read them, I feel like my familiarity has maybe made me a little lax, and I just kind of read it and keep going, right? Instead of reading it and say, I wonder what's here. So that's why I've spent a few days thinking about them rather than just hopping on here and telling you what I've always known about them or what I think I've always known. So let's jump right to it. You are the salt of the earth. Now this is a statement of function, okay? Christ in Jesus' day, and even now, salt serves 2 or 3 primary functions. It's a seasoning, it's a preservative, and it has been used as a disinfectant. Okay, and now we still use it for seasoning. Of course, we use it for a preserving agent. Especially with meat. You've heard of cured meats. They've been cured with salt, and we don't do this as much anymore. But it used to be that salt would be used for wounds. I mean, if you've heard the phrase pouring salt in the wound, it came from the actual practice of doing that, because salt would cause the wound to heal better. Now it did burn really bad, okay, but it was used to promote healing in the wound. And whether people knew this or not at the time, but salt does kill a large number of different kinds of bacteria. But anyways, but what was Jesus thinking when he said you were the salt of the earth? Okay. He does make a direct mention of flavor. If the salt has lost its flavor, how can it be restored? Or if it's lost its taste. So what does that mean? Now, some of the reading I did kind of went down this path of, salt actually can't lose its flavor. the compound that we use. Sodium chloride is a very stable compound. Well, here's what I don't think Jesus was actually trying to be a chemist here or give us a chemistry lesson. The point wasn't the chemistry. The point was the analogy. The analogy that he's drawing, it's a direct stab at mediocrity, nominal living. It's a matter of living a life that is noticeable / flavorful. Okay, how noticeably different is your life from those who don't know Jesus? I mean, that's what is getting boiled down to. Because just like when you add salt to a dish, or like I like to put salt on black eyed peas, it makes the flavor pop a little more. I don't overdo it, but it just a little bit. Overdoing salt always ruins it, but just a little bit of salt makes that flavor pop. And Jesus is really getting at, trying to make a point here. If your kingdom life isn't flavorful enough to be noticed, what good is it? And Jesus said that's usually Jesus says that unsalty salt is good for nothing. Okay, and it can't be restored. And in the same way, the analogy is that a kingdom life that isn't distinguishable from the world isn't useful for kingdom purposes. Okay. So now the good news is this is an analogy because salt is a static, lifeless thing. And if it actually could or did lose its flavor, it wouldn't be able to do anything. There would be nothing you could do about that. I mean, when it breaks down into sodium and chlorine, those two things they're actually poisonous to us. But together they make something that's useful and beneficial. But what I'm getting at is that, if it actually did lose its flavor, there wouldn't be anything that could be done to restore it. So people aren't like that, okay? People are not static objects. If you see your life as flavorless salt, well, the good news for you is something can actually be done about that. Just ask the Lord for help. I mean, and He will reflavor your life. And think of it like this. Why would Jesus teach this and give us this analogy if there wasn't something we could do about it? So it's a warning, don't be flavorless, but instead be flavorful. So you can actually do something about your kingdom life that is currently flavorless and become flavorful. Because otherwise, if you remain flavorless, you're good for nothing. And I'm not trying to be unkind when I say that, but that's the picture that Jesus is drawing. Unsalty salt is good for nothing. Unflavorful believers are good. Their kingdom lives make no impact. They're also not useful for kingdom things. So, all right, let's move on. You are the light of the world. Now, like the analogy of salt, there is an issue of living a life in a way that's noticeably different. Okay, so with salt, flavor is the analogy. With light, sight is the analogy. So some have said this doesn't mean. Some have said this means that you shouldn't be an undercover Christian, and I can get with that. Okay, especially in America. I mean, in nations where there is freedom of worship, there should never be secret believers. Okay, but this really made me think about asking this question: what about where there is actual violent government persecution against Christians? Because if the Bible is going to say something, the Bible has got to make sense to every believer across the face of the planet. There's going to be a truth there that is effective for everybody. So what about that believer in, let's just go with Iran. How is an Iranian believer a light? I mean, how do they not cover their light with a basket? How do they practice putting their light on a lampstand so that everyone in the house can see it? Okay. To be honest, I don't know. I don't live there. And I did do some reading to kind of inform myself a little bit. And what I found out is that, believers in Iran actually do keep their faith a secret so that they can avoid arrest. So when they read this verse, what goes through their hearts? What goes through their minds? Now, clearly, here's where I think we need to expand our thinking. Somehow, even though they do keep their faith a secret to avoid arrest, the church is growing. So somehow they are putting their light on a lampstand. Somehow they are being flavorful. And so the church is growing in Iran, but see, they don't worship publicly or broadcast their faith in ways that puts this big bullseye on their back for them to get arrested. And many of them do get arrested because they get found out, or even in cases where the Holy Spirit moves them to share their faith with somebody in a way that could put them out in danger for being arrested. That happens. So the question that I have in my heart, in my head, is how are they salt and light? In church, I think the biblical answer to salt and light is actually bigger and deeper than what we usually think about it with and we've imagined. See, salt and light deal with flavor and sight. How salty are we? How visible are we? Do we add flavor? Do we cast light in the darkness? Do people taste and see? See, Jesus isn't making up these metaphors. Jesus is drawing from Psalm 34:8. It says, "Oh, taste and see that the Lord is good. Blessed is the man who takes refuge in him." So I want to leave you with this, okay, today. How can people taste and see that the Lord is good if people have lost their flavor, if his people have lost their flavor and put their lamps under baskets? What does that look like for you? I mean, we've talked about what that could maybe possibly look like for people in Iran, and it's going to look a certain way for them. What does it look like for us? I mean, for us here in America, and I'm not going to pick on America, the American church. Many people do that. I don't want to be another voice in that. I want to encourage you. I want to encourage you to come along, grow in this. Let your light so shine before men that they will see your good works and glorify your Father in heaven. That's how Jesus ended that teaching, that little segment of his teaching. Do you have a Christian life that people can taste and see that the Lord is good? All right. That's all we're going to do today. We will keep going with the next one a little bit deeper into the Sermon on the Mount. I hope this has been helpful. I hope it blesses you. I hope it pushes you a little bit, pushes you to consider these things and let the Holy Spirit work in your heart so that you actually do become a person where people can taste and see. All right. Love you guys. We'll see you next time.